I didn't know
he shouldn't be able. You wouldn't let a athlete that been on steroids talk about one of the greats. Ricky Smiley can't act because Ricky Smiley can't act. He told you the story about when the movie came out. Where did he say he watched it? At home. He wasn't even at the premiere. You tell.
Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Bird 91. We're talking to you guys about Katt Williams. We're going to have a few people on to come and have their say. But I've got to say, this is probably one of the greatest interviews I have seen in my lifetime. I can't lie to you, all right? Now, I've seen some great interviews. I'm not saying it's the best one. I'm saying this is one of the greatest ones I've seen in a lifetime. And I'll tell you why I feel like it's one of the greatest interviews I've seen. It is the response after that verifies this interview being true, right? On the internet, on Twitter, on Instagram, or wherever you are, all the people that came out to defend Katt Williams and tell us that he had done things for them behind the scenes was like biblical. That's the way it was almost sounding, you know? When the Bible tells you don't let your left hand see what your right hand is doing, that was literally what he was doing. And I think what's so powerful about it is that, you know, they verified his character and his integrity. And what I loved about it is that there was just, you know, listen, he liked to throw a little shade in there, of course. You know, he liked to be competitive. You know, he's got that energy, that spunk. He's going to make sure people, you know, get the business as well. I'm not mad at it, right? Because he's in a competitive environment, and I understand, you know, being a comedian, he wants to make people laugh. But I think from a standpoint of somebody who didn't really know much about Katt Williams, I didn't know much about Katt Williams, if I'm honest with you. All right, I knew that they always, whenever you mention Katt Williams' names, blackballed and cancelled, and there were the two words that would come after him, right? And because he would tell the truth about quote unquote Hollywood, the industry, etc., right? So all the things that he has culminated to say on Shannon Sharpe's situation, on Shannon Sharpe's internet. Especially around the Illuminati and all that stuff. I've seen things that he's done. He said that from a long time ago. This is nothing new for him. He's a sharp shooter. Now, what's really powerful, I think, also alongside that is that when the Bible says your gifts and talents will make room for you before kings and queens, I think he just proved that. I think literally he proved that. He came on Shannon Sharpe, I think it's the highest rated interview that he has on that channel. 30 million views in 2 days. Like, I just need you to understand the carnage he brought to the table. Like, and not only that, he actually prophesied it before it even got to that stage. He said, this is going to be one of the greatest interviews, and I'm establishing it as a place of truth. And I love that. I love that, you know, I love the fact that, you know, that he can establish that place of truth and say, hey, you know what? Like, this is now going to be a place where people are going to come and set the record straight. I'm not mad that he called out, who did he call out? He basically called out Chris Tucker, Kevin Hart. He called out Tracy something, I can't remember his name. I don't remember his name. Michael Blackson, Cedric. I think he at one point even called out a couple others as well. There was other Ludacris also. Like, I mean, listen, this is one of the hardest interviews. And do you know what it is? God's time is best time, right? And I say that because what he's talking about, Faison, thank you. What he's talking about, this shouldn't get 30 million views. Not because it's not good, but because of what he's talking about. I think that just lets you know the time and the season that we're actually in. As somebody said, it's the year of the dragon. You know, we're in that season where people are happily wanting truth and are willing to accept it because we're in that environment now. People are being called out. People are being exposed. You know, it don't matter who you are. We're in that season. And something about him struck me because, and I know that Jay will definitely have some more to say on this part as well. People like Katt Williams, I can really identify with. Natural born rebels. You are called to be a rebel because your nature and your mindset, okay, all right, your nature and your mindset is to upset the status quo. What's going on in my building? Somebody is fighting their door. But your nature is to upset the status quo and to bring about a revolution in that space. And you do that because you are soul soldier. And what that means is you wrestle things by yourself, Samson kind of energy, you know, biblically speaking, Samson kind of energy where, you know, you tear things up solo, you know, Gideon kind of style, you tear things up solo. Why? Because it's just what God has given to you as your journey. And everything that he's gone through over the past few years has culminated to that point where he's now sitting on SHANNON Sharpe's sofa. And it's now brought about this point where the whole internet is talking about Katt Williams. If you didn't know about him before, you now know about him, right? If you didn't know about him before, you now know about Katt Williams, right? And so this is something that is going to, I believe, cause a chain of events, right? It's already caused some for some of the comedians. They've come out and started, you know, saying what they're saying. But I loved it. And I know some people didn't like the way that SHANNON Sharpe interviewed. You have to understand, right? Someone like Katt Williams doesn't need an interviewer to keep asking a barrage of questions. Katt Williams just needs you to ask one or two and let him fly. Certain people in this life, you don't need to squash them down with trying to, you know, sometimes it happens to me on this platform. People tell you, take control of the interview. And it's like, nah, some people just let them have it. Katt Williams is one of those people. Let him have it. Just give him the space. I promise you, he gonna take that ball, he gonna smash out the park. Okay? All right? He smashed out the park. So we don't need SHANNON to do anything different. Okay? All right? It doesn't have to be anything different. I love the way he allowed him just to be able to knock it out the park. There's no need to. You get what I'm saying to you, right? I know some people want it that organized way. We wouldn't have got 30. I'm telling you, if he had taken over that interview, you wouldn't have got 30 million views. It gets 30 million views because Katt is Katt, right? So yes, he did a great job, SHANNON, just doing what he does best, which is he allows what he needs to allow. He asks questions when he can ask it. He asked some really good questions about his family. There's one part in there which I love. I mean, I'll do a separate live for it. There's a part where Katt Williams starts talking about his father and the interaction with his father, and I think that is one aspect. Maybe that needs its whole part too, because Katt was actually dodging some of the questions. He dodged some of the questions in a way that he answered it. I know maybe he didn't want to expose family or something like that, but you know, that part, yeah. There was a very intense part there. So I'll read out some of the things that happened, and then I'll get the panelists on. So I see if people have come behind the scenes, so I don't want to waste much time. I want to get them on. I want to get their thoughts of view about this. So here's some of the things that I caught on to in this show as well. All right. So Katt Williams called out so many different comedians, and I felt it was rightly so. And if they want to hit him back, they should. But he spoke about his tough upbringing. Was out the house by 13, moved from Ohio to Florida. Similar kind of age to Jesus in the synagogue. I don't know, yeah, a bit of a parallel there. Had a bust up with his father, obviously, ended up leaving. Had a strong gift for entertainment. He speaks a lot about the gatekeepers that happen in the industry. Spoke about Illuminati as well, and people as well. Talked quite a bit about the dress situation, which I just saw a video with Brandon Jackson came out saying he should have listened to Katt Williams. Katt Williams is a very gifted person. Can I just say that as well? He's talented, but he's also smart. And I think that's why I really enjoyed it. If you're an intellectual person, you're going to like Katt Williams because he likes to layer things. You know, like he'll say something, he layers it. There's so much intellect there as well. And I love that with Katt Williams, that you can see the thought process. And at the same time, almost I can see there's there's a specialness to him as well. You know, just the way he thinks. I would love to have a conversation with him in the future, man. He speaks about his nature for competition. He says he read 3,000 books in a year. Now, listen, if he did, God bless him. It ain't gonna be me. But 3,000 books in a year is quite a lot. But hey ho. I am not here to say yes he did or yes he did not, because I don't want to be caught astray. Actually, let me catch a stray, because maybe he's got numbers, okay? Maybe he can raise my profile. I'll get to 100K before the end of January. But then he speaks about there was a question asked about how similar are you to your dad. He didn't answer it. He actually dodged it. And I think that is something we can talk about, like I said, on another panel. He had 2 brothers underneath him, which has now influenced him to now go and adopt, I think, 6 or 7 kids he has now, and he takes them underneath their wing as well. He lived in different states, worked the both black and white audience. What I really liked about him was the fact that he had that he was dedicated to his craft, that he actually spent time drilling in on his craft, and that is what makes Katt Williams great. When I listened to how he broke it down, he said, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, some part of me, I don't like to say it, but I do check the numbers, not just for myself, but for others too. I can't lie to you. Okay, all right, we check the numbers. Okay, you do. If you are competitive, you naturally will start to compete. It just happens to you. You can't get away from it. I try not to do as much, but you want to. You know, you want to win. Yeah, and I saw that with Katt Williams, okay? Like, the way he broke it down analytically about how he saw it, he analyzed how many people would get laughs, he would watch your sets, he would watch it over and over again, he would understand your process, he refined his own process, he sat down under tutelage, made sure that his own thing was up to standard. You know, spent time in the background so that when he came to the foreground, he was ready to go. Like, this is somebody who has taken his time to mold himself to where he's at point now. Yes, he said Prince taught him the business as well. So, you know, by the grace of God, he got also brought into, you know, with great people as well who could help him along the way. He said obviously that he didn't want to talk about his philanthropy. He didn't want to mention it. I love that. Again, as I said earlier on, he spoke about Martin and how I said Martin. What do I say? Martin Lawrence, and he talked about the dress situation that happened with Big Mama House. And you know what it is? For me, obviously, because you do acting and stuff like that, and because it's obviously always been silly, I never saw a big deal with the dress situation. But I understand where the dress situation comes into play because of the symbolism within the industry. But I was like, you know, if you play a dress, it is what it is. But I get the industry tries to force black men into that space. Not just black men, there's white men who do this too. It's a part of the humiliation and the embarrassment they like to give people. I totally understand that. He spoke about the fact that he has 12 Netflix specials and then called out a bunch of comedians who don't have any. I was like, God damn. He said, listen, they can't have a conversation with me because they don't have any specials. So why are they talking? And I'm not mad at it. And then he said, obviously, that some people started also... some people also have been stealing content from other people. Okay, so that was a big one there. Some people got called out on that as well. And then I love the fact that he gave people their flowers. I love the fact that he also provided a platform for other people to come into the space. He paid some people as well behind the scenes. Didn't want to say nothing. You know, he spoke about the Migos situation. Didn't want to say anything. His philanthropy, again, it's not about being exposed to the world. It's what he does behind the scenes. And that's why people came out and said they all have a story about Katt Williams and how he's helped them in those times. I'd like to cap it off by saying where I kind of agreed with him a little bit. He said he liked the little toxic women. You know what I mean? That's a Katt. You know, you can't be all good now. You know what I'm saying? There had to be a little something, and I appreciate it. You know? He understands my affiliation a little bit for the toxic woman, you know what I mean? But yeah, all in all, great interview. And I top it up to say, concluding wise, it felt like this an almost updated story of the Good Samaritan, right? If the Good Samaritan had an interview, maybe he'll have some stories like Katt Williams does as well, where he's helped several people behind the scenes, not because he wants to get the plaudits, but because he felt like it's the right thing to do. And he said these words, which was, his thing was just to be a friend of God. That was it. He wanted to be a friend of God. So I'm gonna get some panelists up here to have a conversation about what they experienced on that interview. It was 2 hours and 46 minutes long. It took me 2 days to finish it. I can't lie to you because I had to do other things, but I do not regret it at all. Shout out to Kevin Hart because I need to, that he said he's challenging Kevin Hart to a shootout on comedy, so I want to see that. Hopefully Kevin Hart will run away. But yeah, we going to talk about it. So listen, welcome to Little Blackbird 91. We're here to educate and entertain you guys as always, and we like to, have some good informed conversation. Today is Have Your Say Day, which means I have some panelists who will come through, and if there's enough time, I may open up the panelists to other people to have their say as well. Keep it cute in the chat, keep it classy. Okay, all right, because the mods will block you if you move too mad. Okay, all right. I know Katt Williams can say whatever he wants, but you can't say anything you want in this chat. Okay, you will be blocked. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And let's have a great conversation. If you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe. Click on the bell button for notification of uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is. You got the minerals. Okay, all right. So let's get into this conversation. I've got a few people behind the scenes I'm going to bring up. And we're gonna get this conversation rocking. Oh, Mercer, I think your sound is a little bit boo-boo. Let me see if I can fix it for you.
No, I have my headphones in.
Let's see if I can fix it for you. Let me see if I can. Say something for me.
Hello.
You're a little bit low, babe. It might be. Are you on
Watch this.
AirPods?
AirPods. I took them out. Yeah, I just put them back in.
Might be a little bit mad. Okay. All right.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Sound like you're underneath the waters. She'll come back. Someone said she's using the rose. Jay, Mr. VIP. I know Sean will come a little bit later as well. I just realized what that meant when he said the rose. Listen, Jay, what's your thoughts on this, Katt Williams situation? What's your thought process? What's your kind of feeling about this interview? What did you get from it? Your immediate kind of thoughts of this?
He has some things to say. He has some things to get off his chest, and that's what he did. And he did it in a way only Katt can do it. He threw shots, he told jokes, but he also told his truth. Whether we want to believe it or not, it's his truth. This is how he experienced the things that he went through. And so he got a shot to tell it on Shannon Sharpe's channel. So
I love that. Appreciate it. Mr. VIP, what's your immediate thoughts on the interview that you witnessed with Katt Williams?
Yeah, this was a very wide-ranging interview. I mean, he was getting people to catch strays unintentionally, but intentionally as well. He was speaking his truth. And I think it was motivated by, like he said in the early stages, it was like he had seen other comedians come on and portray certain things that didn't actually go like that. So he was there to set the record straight. And, I think going into depth with his personal situation is something we don't get to hear about often because he's actually a very low-key guy. Even though he has Netflix specials and things, he still very much keeps himself to himself. So yeah, he dispelled a lot of rumors and a lot of talk about him, and yeah, he was there to really beat some people down for what they've been doing, violating him. Good interview though. I can see why it did so many views. It's a very great interview.
I love that. Merce, talk to me.
I thought it was absolutely amazing. Like, as an ADD person, I had so much fun just taking a trip with him. And depending on where you were at, he was giving you nuggets at every part of his interview. So there were spiritual nuggets, there were life nuggets, there were just so many things to have fun with over the course of the interview. So I know people are giving Shannon a lot of shit, but I just feel like a good interview is a well-guided conversation, and a good conversation was had about so many things. So I had a lot of fun watching it. I thought it was interesting though to see it now.
Coach, is it her up a little bit?
Oh, can you turn
Oh,
it
can
up?
you turn it
Okay,
up?
let me see
Okay,
if I
let me
can
see if
turn
I
it
can
up a
turn it
little
up a
bit.
little
Yes,
bit. Yes,
I
I
can
can
try.
try.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
Mercedes,
Mercedes,
on
on
YouTube in the background, we have an
we have an
echo.
echo.
I do not have you guys up on YouTube in the background.
Okay.
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 All right.
All right.
Try for
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen.
listen.
So yeah.
So
No.
yeah,
Listen.
no,
It
listen.
was.
It was.
It's a
It's a
powerful
powerful
interview. I can't
interview. I
lie
can't
to
lie
you.
to you.
And I
And
loved it.
I loved it.
Okay. So
Okay, so
what's
what's
your
your guys'
guys' thoughts
thoughts
then
then
on
on
the
the
strays
strays
that some of
that
the
some of the
comedians were
comedians were
catching?
catching?
You
You
know,
know,
some of the
some of the
comedians
comedians
were
were
getting
getting
some
some
work. So I
work.
want to get you guys' thoughts. What's your thoughts on this?
Well,
You,
like I think some people were embellishing, their roles in certain movies, or um, talking about their stand-up careers, and a lot of the. I think we have to differentiate, because I do. Like, there's people who are funny on stand-up, and then there's people who are funny with satire, and and people who are movie funny, right? So there are you can't all just say comedians, because holistically, that they're all different. They all have strengths and weaknesses. Like, he mentioned a few obscure ones that back in the day on Def Jam Comedy, that's how they made their name on stand up, right? And that led to them getting movie roles, etc. But then you have the internet comedians and a few other, people who got into the industry in a different way, like he was talking about Kevin Hart, where, he may have done a few shows, but he never sold out. So I think there's a element of competitiveness, and not only that, I'm not saying he's envious, but when you look at how Kevin Hart has become pretty much a household name, made movies like Jumanji for kids and all that stuff, rolled around with The Rock, made movies, made millions. You can see that some of the comedians that may have grinded a different way may feel a bit, aggrieved by not having those type of opportunities as well. But I think that's where networking comes into play.
Go for it, Jay.
I agree with most of what JR just said, except for the part at the end, because I don't know where Katt wanted to be at the end. I know I watch Katt's career start. I watch Kevin Hart's career start. Kevin Hart started making films. He did stand up, but he started making films, his own films. So he wanted to go in the movie direction. So it would depend on Katt if Katt wanted to go in the movie direction, which I don't really get, being that Friday was his first breakout role. Friday After Next was his first breakout role, and it didn't seem after that like he was pressed on making more movies after that. So I can get where you're saying there's some type of ego or some type of little bit of something that why did you make it here or whatever. But if you're doing Disney movies and these types of things, this might have been your goal. Now, a lot of what I'm going to say here is from people I know personally that work with Katt. I never work with Katt. Let me put that out there. I never work with Katt, so this is secondhand information that I've gotten. Katt is a workaholic from the time he's up to the time he takes his cat naps, because literally that's all he does. He's a workaholic. I feel like if Katt wanted to be in movies, a lot more movies, he would have been in a lot more movies, because that's just how he's dedicated to his work ethic. He's on the grind all the time. And that's why he's able to sit here and tell you stories of how he put so many people on, because he made sure that he created opportunities for a lot of people. And he stayed awake, making sure those opportunities would get done for those people. While those people were sleeping, he was working. So I don't think it's more so of being envious or jealous of anybody. I think when he's saying is a lot of, if you're really good at something, you're really dedicated at something, I should see you putting a lot of that energy into that something to be great in that area. And sometimes when people have such high work ethics, they do look down at everybody else not working as hard as them. And they feel some type of way, especially when those people that are not working as hard, and I'm not saying this about Kevin, because we know Kevin got a strong work ethic too, but I'm saying other people, certain other people may not have worked as hard, physically, but networking wise, they might have been in the right places at the right time to build relationships with people that put them on and made it look so much easier. And it's like it does make you feel some type of way. It's like I'm grinding, I'm doing all of this and that, and I'm not getting that acknowledgement, while this person just walks into a room and gets that. So I get where you could say that, JR, if that's what you mean by it. I get that. As far as Katt though, it's like if he felt some reason to say what he had to say, and I know there's a lot of rivalry that goes on. People like to pretend like they're really cool in public eye with one another, but a lot of these dudes really be talking about each other. A lot of them really do steal people's jokes or whatnot. My boy Guy had put up a post where Bernie Mac tells new comedians, hey, you walking into this area, this space, don't practice in front of other comedians. He said it himself firsthand. A person like me, Bernie Mac speaking, a person like me will take your joke and magnify it. And because I have the status already, it's going to be first come, first serve. And they see me with your joke. It's now my joke. So he gave a disclaimer to up and coming artists. Hey, don't do this. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how the rivalry works. So it hurts when you walk into a game and you don't know that. And then you're proceeding to do your jokes, and you might be doing it on a smaller platform, and somebody takes your joke and just uses it and never gives you the credit, i.e. Cedric. And Cedric could not, I've read the post where he tried to go around it, but never denied it. But there's footage of Katt Williams on Def Comedy Jam long before the Kings of Comedy saying a joke, and Cedric saying that same joke with just a few switches. It's still plagiarism. At the end of the day, it's still plagiarism. So people have some things coming, I guess, in Katt's eyes. So that's what I'll say.
Go for it, Max.
So I don't think they were strays at all. Like, I think he was extremely intentional about who he outed, how he outed them, because like if he put so much encrypted stuff throughout this interview, you know, he tells you, I know so much dirt on this, you know, so everything that Katt is saying, he's gonna be able to back it up. So I don't feel like they were strays, because I feel like they were intentional. So to tie that all back, why he chose certain people, he called it the year of reckoning. He called it the year of exposure. And all he had to do was tell the truth. And they're popping he's popping balloons, just boop, 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 with the truth, you know, which is the easiest thing. So I don't think they were strays at all. I think he was very intentional about who he chose, who he exposed, the timing of it, like all the little slick little he did the underbelly. He showed you the underbelly and what's coming. So I don't know. That's how I viewed it. I know there's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, but I think he was extremely intentional.
I think for me personally, you know, I think with the Katt Williams, did people get astray? I mean, the beautiful thing about it is that a lot of people probably would agree with the strays that he gave. I mean, again, stray would even mean that he was misfiring. No. He was aiming for them. So it's not even a stray. He was aiming for these people. And I'm not mad at it, right? Because I think it depends on what perspective you're coming from, right? If he was speaking... So I also get the part about as well, like, for instance, you know, a lot of these... They say, like, you know, when we make a joke like, you know, someone works hard, but the devil works harder, right? Even if you are in that industry, and even if, coming from a Christian perspective, someone says they sold their soul, there is still an aspect of work rate they need to put in there. There's still an aspect of working the gift. There's still an aspect of maturing the gift. There's still an aspect of working it out. Hence, someone might say Beyonce, but Beyonce is one of the hardest workers out there. She has crafted her gift, okay? She has honed it to a perfection and a T. You can never tell me anything about Beyonce. I would never open my mouth to say anything about Beyonce's work rate nor her skills. Okay? That woman can sing and dance at the same time. You ever tried it before? Yeah, you huffing and puffing, because that's what I'll be doing. Because it is difficult to do. So, no matter no matter whether that person gets to push from the opposite side as what he was describing, the work rate and the talent can never be put aside. Now, of course, the people that he did mention, I ain't gonna lie to you, I haven't found Kevin Hart funny in a couple of years. Okay? I haven't found him funny in a couple of years. The early doors, I had him to a T. I was like, this guy is funny, da 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 da. Something changed. I don't know if he didn't focus on the craft anymore, and whether he now maybe he got into the door of Hollywood and now, he's got what he wanted now. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to focus on that anymore. But I don't find him funny anymore. I struggle to watch his comedy specials or anything that he does. I don't find it that funny anymore. Okay? And there's a few others too who I don't really find that funny. Right? So, I agree with you, Mess. I don't think it was a stray. I think he was shooting and he was aiming, and it was on sight as well. So, but I don't know. Still staying on that topic of obviously talking about the people that he mentioned. Was there anybody in that list of people that he mentioned that you was a little bit like, I don't know about it, or I disagree, or I personally agree? Was anybody on that list that you felt like that? Yes, Mr. VIP.
It wasn't necessarily that I disagreed. I mean, he was spinning a lot of tea, and the reason why I said it was strays is because some of the people he mentioned hadn't gone on interviews and talked about him. For example, Earthquake. I don't think Earthquake went on any talk shows or anything speaking about Katt Williams. Also, what's his name? LeVar. Can't remember his name. Big dude, right? He's talking about his dyslexic. He can't read and things like that. That's not necessarily stuff that we needed to know, right? But I think when it comes to the work ethic that these guys have to do, obviously, it must be very tough to try and appeal to a massive audience, selling out shows, however large the audience is, and making everybody laugh. That's a very hard skill to do. So the intellectual property is where I think he was coming at these guys with, obviously we hear about in music people stealing bars or stealing verses and things like that. That used to be a thing, right? So I can understand why someone with Katt's work ethic, with the field that they're in, of course he's going to be protectionist over his material. So I think it's only right that if you're in any type of performing art, you have to be guarded, because the people around you that are doing the same thing can steal your stuff. And like Jay said, they can go viral these days, or be in a place where the audience receives that joke and assumes it's their original material. So I can definitely see why you'd have a grudge against some comedians. But like I said, he was mentioning some lesser known comedians that we don't necessarily see on TV, see on movies. We've only seen them either back in the day or on guest appearances and things. But he did that as well as talking about some of the household names that we've come to know. And I agree. When it comes to Kevin Hart, I mean, like I said, to me, he ain't stand-up funny. I've seen a couple and I never laughed once, right? So he failed at his job to make me laugh, but that's because his brand of humor isn't my thing. I'm sure there are many people who turn up to his shows and support him and everything and watch his movies and all that stuff. Listen, it was Soul Plane that introduced me to a lot of these people back in the day when it came out. I also watched Def Jam Comedy. I watched all of them. I still have them on DVD. So I know some of the guys that he's talking about. Now, when it comes to major players like Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, and all these other guys, like I said, that competitive spirit that they have, because of course, I don't think it's right to pocket watch, but at the same time, if these people are selling their soul to gatekeepers and things like that, as was mentioned, to get to where they are, instead of getting there off of their hard work and merit solely, then I can see why there would be a chip on the shoulder in that regard. It's natural.
Anyone have an opposing view or similar view before I talk about the actual strays that were actually sent in this episode? Yes,
Yes,
Mark.
Mark.
I think that, like, okay, for me, when I was watching it, I just felt like he turned down the music and said, who can really sing? Like, you know what I mean? He took the auto tune, he snatched the plugs up out of stuff and was like, you say you're a comedian, stand on it. So I feel like whether you were lesser known, well known, big name, little name, he turned on the music and said, "Let me hear you sing." Like, you ever been in a car, like, and I feel like he applied pressure. And all he's saying is, it's like you're scraping fool's gold off of shit. Like, watch this. It's not real. You know what y'all are buying into isn't real. So I I think it was intentional because he's trying to break a whole like construct that a paradigm that we look at these people through, and he's saying it's not real. You know, take the glasses off. It's not real. So he's gonna give you big names. He's gonna even show it goes down to the little part of the industry. So whether you're an A-lister, B-lister, C-lister, y'all are all playing in the same paradigm, and it's fake. Y'all are, doing things, compromising yourselves to get a B-list spot, a little spot. They don't care if you're on film and you're in stand-up. They're chasing this facade, and all he's saying is it's not real. Pop his balloon. It's not real. You can make 40 million. Pop it. It's not real. So I think it was, again, intentional. Like, he was strategic with who he chose and why.
What you say, Mercy, that is like so true. What he's telling people right now, and this is a thing about comedy, when you really watch Def Comedy Jam, when you watch Comic View back in the day, when you watch all of these shows that had comedy, it was raw. The comedians, when they step on stage, they're raw. They're free to say whatever, and there was a beauty in that space. Once you start getting to a certain level, we start getting the comedy like Kevin Hart, where it's no longer raw. I have to watch who I'm talking about because now I'm offending people who is now going to mess with my pockets. And there's a thing, and I'm pretty much like this. I have a hard time working under anybody or working for anybody afraid to lose their job, afraid to do whatever it is that's necessary to keep their position, because that means they'll do whatever they need to do to keep that position. And the whole thing about this whole thing was integrity. What are you doing to keep your integrity within your craft? You say you're not going to put on a dress, next thing you know, you're in a dress. You say you're not going to work and say, I can be able to do it and say whatever I want to, but they offer me this much money. Now I'm not doing these things. That's why he highlights certain people where he says there will be no shame. D.L. Hughley is not the funniest, but D.L. Hughley will stand on his word. Dave Chappelle will stand on his word. There's a lot of people, a lot of the women are not named because most of the women have to stand on their word. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them can't compromise. They don't even get offered to compromise. You get the Moniques when you get offered to compromise and stuff. So this is what he's about. He's just like, hey, I've been watching this craft and you guys are messing it all up now. This is my heart. This is my love. This is my baby. And now anybody just comes in and does anything. To the new group coming up, if you don't want to be here with amongst these people who are now on somebody's payroll, so now they have to do what they're told, this might be the route you have to go. You might have to be blackballed. You might have to be outcasted. You might have to sit here and grind by yourself on your own, put on shows and work every single night by yourself to keep your integrity. So a lot of these people that were being highlighted, if we really look at it, a lot of them lost some of their integrity going down these paths. Now, the ones that got the strays, some of the wives got the strays. Shannon Sharpe got a lot of strays up there, but he rolled with them because he wanted this interview stuff. So It's gonna come with it. But I think everybody else that he pretty much he highlighted, it must be some truth there. It must be some truth because a lot of them jumped on the thing 20, 30 minutes later and started confessing. You getting rap songs where I ain't never had a rap song from you in a long time because you've been out here making your movies. A lot of people doing a lot of strange things to try to say, "Oh, I still have my integrity." I don't know. I don't know.
Jay, welcome to the conversation. I said Jay, but Jay Anderson. Thank you, Jay, for that. We're talking obviously about the Katt Williams interview. The question that I think was asking, because we went deep already, and I even got lost a little bit. When I say lost, in terms of that, there's a lot of information coming. So, but no, we were talking obviously about the strays, that apparent strays, and I think I agreed with Merce when she said that it wasn't strays. He was shooting effectively. Okay, all right, and hidden targets. I wanted to get your thought process on watching Katt Williams, take the gun out and start shooting the other comedians. About, and I love what Jay said here, integrity and compromise and stuff like that. Did you agree with what he was saying and who he targeted? I mean, Luda caught a stray too, so I shouldn't say a stray. He aimed for Luda. I can't even lie to you. He said light skinned niggas. He really went for Luda, like a poor guy, man, poor guy. I've been wondering why he cut off his hair too, but hey, that's another story. Jay, what's your thoughts on this, on Katt Williams and him, sending out the shooters for the peoples?
Hey family, hi everyone in the chat. Do you know what? I agree with what everyone said here in different parts. First of all, I thought the interview was amazing. He just spoke the truth. I mean, my pastor today said, let 2024 be the year of truth, right? So, I mean, it started already, hasn't it? So I think this interview was amazing. How I see Katt from this interview is someone who, he cares about the grassroots level. He cares about the people coming up who are struggling, who are trying. And he's seeing someone like Kevin Hart, who I guess you can say he only cares about people who are at a particular level and can more so are like him, who's gonna shook and jive. I think that's the saying, for the quote unquote white man in terms of to get certain opportunities. And I think what Jay was saying in terms of integrity is the point that he was making, that these people are not genuine people behind the scenes, and they're not who they even say they are on camera. And I remember for myself, years and years back, what he was saying is the same thing a lot of other comedians were saying. They haven't come out and said anything, they've just let Katt roll with it. But there's a lot of other comedians who do feel the same way in that industry about Kevin Hart and about Tiffany Haddish. And I'm with you, I actually went to a Kevin Hart show maybe 10 years ago, and it was still a good show, but I remember leaving that thinking, but I wasn't rolling around laughing. Okay, do you know what? Kevin Hart is just he's a funny person. He's a funny personality, but his jokes, I'm not gonna, you're not gonna remember much jokes after that. I think probably the most famous ones are all right, or how my bank account is set up. Those are probably ones that we know the most. But he's not someone that you're gonna go to and say, I need a comedian on whatever I'm doing, right? If you compare that to the Katt Williams, to the Dave Chappelle's, these are some of the big ones. I'm the type of person, God rest his soul, but I love Patrice O'Neill. Obviously he's gone now for the past 10 years. So there is a big, let me put this up, there is a big difference, in what it actually means to be a comedian or comedienne for the ladies, right? And I think he cares about that. He cares about what's happening behind the scenes. I've watched about 30 videos over the past 2 days of people coming out and saying he actually does care. He helps people at the grassroots level. Someone like Kevin Hart doesn't really care like that, and he's giving chances to people because those are the people he wants to bring in. But he's also trying to snap at Kevin Hart, trying to snap at Katt Williams for quote unquote messing things up. But it's a lot of hypocrisy and contradiction going on there. I mean, Tiffany Haddish had to cancel a show last month because of a DUI, and that's gonna make me come back in probably March. But Kevin Hart's come out and said, do you know what, if I have to do it myself, I will do. So to me, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. A lot more people could have got strays. Hardly anyone has come out and called him an outright liar. The one thing that I don't like that people use as a tactic, and Kevin Hart is using it, so did Luda, is trying to discredit him by calling him crazy or on drugs. I don't know if people notice that. That's one thing I don't like that people do, because you haven't really got a leg to stand on in what you say. So in order to make the people think that don't believe this person, you're gonna go for low blows. I don't like anyone doing that, and I think we've all probably watched again, you know, the viral clip of Katt Williams when he went against what's her name, Wanda Smith, right? And there's no reason why she had to give a low blow in that moment, you know, because she was losing the battle. And to me, that's where I kind of understand. You know what? I believe Katt. You know, there's some things there was a bit, you know, 3,000 books in, you know, okay, let's see, but you know, in terms of what's going on, I completely believe him. I've seen the comedies, I've seen the jokes as well, where there's a comparison. Steve Harvey stealing people's jokes, Cedric stealing people's jokes. I've seen all those things as well, right? And you can't look at those things and say Katt's lying, but it's part of the industry. It's part of what people do, you know. And if people are ahead of you, yeah, once they use it, it's their joke now. So I agree with what JR was saying. Is once they use it, that affects your money, because that's your money maker. If you're working on jokes for years, that's your money maker. You know, I remember, was it 20 years ago, whenever it was, it wasn't called Kings of Comedy, but they brought something similar over here. Cedric was here, Willie Robo and different people. And Cedric actually said that same joke, you know, with the spaceship. I don't know it was Katt's joke at the time, but, you know, he actually said it. And it was funny when he did it. It was definitely funny. But it puts things into perspective, right, about what is actually happening behind the scenes. And Katt, in his position, can speak up on it. Because he don't need their money. He's good. He's good what he's doing, and he's been good for years. So he's saying, you know what, now is the time I'm going to speak up for people. That's the simple way that I see it. It's not about him. It's about who he's speaking up for.
Appreciate it, Jay. Thank you very much. Black, let me ask you the question, because obviously I've asked Jay and the rest of the panelists. We're asking the question, obviously, Katt Williams' strays that he sent, which we're kind of saying it wasn't strays, because strays would be loose bullets ricocheting everywhere. But this doesn't seem like it was ricocheting. This looked like he was aiming for people, to peel their wigs back, as they would say. You know, what was your thoughts on Katt Williams going after other comedians and people like Ludacris as well? You know, Ludacris got hit with a stray, and his wife got hit with a stray. I mean, so I keep saying stray, and it's inappropriate to say stray because he was aiming for them. His wife caught the stray with the with the bullet that he was sent for Luda. So I want to get your thoughts around that. Was cold. I can't lie to you when he said that, but you know, shoot, I understand what he was trying to say. What's your thoughts, Black?
Yeah, I really do believe that my opinion will be the most unpopular one here. Because in the Katt Williams interview, I had to be honest with you. Everything he said, it was nothing new to me. It was nothing new to us, to be honest with you. We know comedians steal jokes. You know, we know Steve and Bernie had beef. You know, we know that these things happen, right? So it wasn't so much of, oh my goodness, he's telling the truth, he's telling the truth. It's to me like, why? Why is it every time I've seen Katt Williams do an interview that's supposed to be about him, he always pushes on someone else. He always talks about someone else in the industry. So you guys pay attention to that. When he was on Wanda on the radio here in Atlanta, he did the same thing. He talked about Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish then. He did an interview for First Sunday. He talked about Kevin Hart then. So it's like, why you keep having other comedians in your mouth? Now, the truth is the truth, no doubt. No one's saying anything about that. But these are things I've already known. So you had a close to 3-hour interview with Shannon Sharpe, but you spent 2 hours and 20 minutes of the interview talking about other people. The interview is for you to talk about yourself, what you have going on, what you're doing, promote your tour. He did all of that for 10 minutes. And then when it got to the story about him, it's just some things that weren't adding up. And we're excluding that. We're not talking about that. The 3K books weren't making much sense to me. I'm just sorry. The cat don't like the type of guy that sit down and read 3,000 books. That's 8 books a day. Okay. It sounds like it's coming from a place of hate. I'm not hating because I think Katt Williams is funny, but I also think Kevin Hart is funny, but in different ways. You know, so Kevin Hart, to me, I've seen his YouTube clip about him going to trading snaps with Meek Mill. I don't know if you guys seen that. It was funny. That's my type of humor. I like guys who can get snapped, go back and forth and talk about each other. It really just depends on the type of humor that you have. And all due respect to everyone's individuality, what they like. They don't like Kevin Hart, I respect it. They don't like Katt, I respect it. I personally looked at 2 of Katt Williams' out of his 12 that were very same content. Pimpin' and Pimp Chronicles was very similar to me, you know. So in those situations, I just feel like Katt has opportunities to talk about more that he's doing out here, and he doesn't take those opportunities. Now, he is a very gracious comic. This we all know. He gives back to the community. This we all know. These are things about Katt that I like, that I really appreciate about him. But when it comes to talking about other comedians, talking about Ludacris, what was that story about? What would make me think that Ludacris and Katt Williams will be in the same room over a discussion about the way you groom your beard? What does that have to do with anything? I'm going to give someone $200 million to shave my beard. Where are the clippers? I'm shaving it. You know, so it's no brainer for me. So for me, I think that line was crazy. To be honest with you, just makes sense. The 3K books, yeah, I saw the comedic joke from Katt Williams and Cedric Entertainer. Said you stole that, bro. You stole that straight up. I saw the difference between the Halloween joke from Mark Curry and Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey stole that joke, but at the same time, he also said Cedric does not write his own jokes. So it's nothing to me to say someone saw that joke, especially the one about Bumbinicious, saw that joke online on their television show, went and fed it to said never seen the show, and boom, that's how he got it. It can happen that way. It doesn't mean that these comedians are being as evil and conniving as it may seem. Katt was also corrected in this fact of a rape scene. I'm sorry, the R scene in Friday After Next. Cube came on and said that was never the case. Let's call Cap on that. There was also a misdirect from, or half of the story from Katt Williams when he said about Ricky Smiley actually going out for the Money Mike role. That was also Cap, but see, I can understand that because he's not going to always see that. You know, he's not going to see the other side of the business. He didn't know Ricky Smiley went out for that audition. Ricky did. And when Ricky's audition was done, he felt that he was going to get that role. That's how Ricky felt. So when Ricky said that, he said that with all honesty compared to him and what he know, not what Katt Williams knows. So Katt coming on saying he was capped for that, he was in the wrong. So there was some truth that was being laid out, no doubt. But there was also some areas where, Katt, you didn't get the whole picture. You didn't get the whole story right. And you said some things to make you look better in a certain light than, not. So that was my only thing.
Hey, I'm not mad at it. I can rock with that, man. He said some things there that I had to think about. I sat back and I was like, let me think about that. I've been riding the Katt train a little bit, pause, and a bit heavy, but you making me think a little bit more by that perspective. To consider a bit more of the wider context of the situation. I have to remember also too that he's a comedian, but he's also a business person. He understands marketing. He understands how to promo. He understands also as well how to tell a story. Because we all exaggerate some of our stories. I've got a few stories I've exaggerated a little bit. Just a little, hyperbole here and hyperbole there. You know what I mean? All right. So we are doing a little something. So I like that perspective. Thank you, man. Keep that perspective. It's good. Precious. The question we're asking is, what's your thoughts towards Katt Williams sending out bullets to all these different comedians and stuff in that interview?
For me, I love it because a little beef between comedians is always really, really funny for me. I think that's like the best kind of beef because it's usually like, tends to be non-violent, brings loads of funny memes. It's great for the internet. I do agree with Black in some cases of saying that I do think there was a bit of exaggeration from Katt in a lot of things that he was saying. But I think that's just a showmanship in him. That's the comedian in him. That's the eccentric person in him. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I don't feel like it was intentionally malicious. I think he has a viewpoint of how things have gone down for him, and he's going through that. I guess some of it did come across a bit righteous in a way. I think he has his morals and his standards, and he tries to stick by that as closely as he can. And I think sometimes that can come off a bit righteous in some of the things that he says. And obviously he says he's got receipts for all these things. We haven't seen those receipts yet, but we'll take his word for it. But I think, a lot of it was that sort of hyperbole way of just talking and being a showman. I do think a lot of it was true. I think he has probably been dealt some bad hands just because of some decisions he's made because of the things that he thinks are important and integral to him. And I think that is upstanding, regardless of whether it makes business sense or not. I understand what Black was saying about he spent a lot of time talking about other people, but I think a lot of it was him just being able to tell his side of the stories that have been permeated out there for a long time, that he hasn't really maybe had the biggest platform to be able to clear up all in once. And I think he was just like, fine, I'm just going to spray the bullets in one go right now while everyone is watching. Nothing's really happened. It's January. We're just coming into a new year. Everyone's going to be looking and paying attention to this. So let me use this opportunity to do just that. And I think that's what he's sort of kind of done. And it's interesting to see how other people have responded. Other people that have been mentioned have responded. I think it clearly indicates that there is some truth to some of these things. No one has outrightly come out to say he's lying, or they've tried to discredit him. I do think he does come across a little bit manic in his delivery. So I do look at it, a bit, and I try to think about that, because even some of the grandiose things that he says, it does give me a little bit of, he seems a bit manic. But then again, looking at Katt Williams, he's kind of always had that presentation across his career. So maybe that's just how he is in general. So, but yeah, I enjoyed the interview. Katt Williams is hilarious. He's he's out there, isn't he? He's him. He's never changed. He's always been him. And I think that's why people love him. And I think also that's why a lot of people don't like him as well. I guess we'll never really know the immense truth of everything that he says, but I would hazard a guess that the majority of the things that he said in the interview were probably true. But yeah, I think all of this stuff between communities is hilarious. I think it's a great piece of entertainment. January is going to be a long month, so this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun to see where this goes.
All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is, if anybody wants to respond to anything that was said earlier on, you're going to get a minute timer, just so that we can keep the conversation flowing, and I'll ask another question. So if anybody wanted to respond to anything that was said previously, go for it. You got a minute. Go for it, Jay.
Yeah, I want to respond to that whole Ricky Smiley and the Players Club and all. I mean, not the Players Club, but the Friday After Next thing. I watched all of their responses. What Katt was saying was not a cap, because Katt said what Ricky was doing was running around the set telling anybody that will listen he had the Money Mike role, meaning that we're already here casted. I'm already here on character on set, and he's running around still complaining about why he does not have the role. How I know this is a fact, because Ricky Smiley decided to have his manager come on and try to confirm for him. And the manager basically said, yes, you had the script and we was casting for this. And then when we got the next day, they gave you a different script. That means he got recasted. So he was still mad because he personally wanted the Money Mike role. Ice Cube confirmed it by saying, yes, he had that role originally, but when we got Katt was a better fit. And what we're going to do is place people where they're best fitted for. Katt sat there and never said that he didn't technically have the role. He said he was running around the set telling everybody that was supposed to be him, not Katt. So there's no cap in that part right there. The cap could possibly be in the great part of everything. I could agree. Ice Cube says he didn't have that written in there. However, it's implied, so it sounds like it was still in there, because it's still implied in Players Club. And if you want to sit here and be like, oh, I made Players Club and I didn't do that there, you had it in there too. Now, maybe a grape of a man may not have initially been in there, but the fact that you have it all the way implied, and you state to me that you had to figure out how to get rid of these two villains because the Santa Claus was already taken care of. And so you line these two villains up to go against each other to take care of them. Why would he be in the bathroom with the whole scene like we're in prison still, if that's not what you were going for, or if it was somewhere in there and maybe Katt had to say, listen, we're not about to do a whole full-fledged thing of this. We could twist it at the end a little bit. So I think there might be some slight discrepancies of how they both view it, but it's still in there. It's still in there. So there's really no cap to any of that part.
Okay. Anyone else got a quick thought before I change the question? Or quick response to that? Mr. VIP, then Jay. I'm going to keep it to a minute, guys, yeah? I'll put a timer on this time, so go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with Jay, because like, I saw the Ice Cube live as well, where he clarified a lot of the situation, right? He confirmed a lot of things, and obviously Ice Cube, it being Ice Cube's movie, like, he would know what roles he wanted people to play and why certain things happened the way they did. So I saw that too. I think in a way you can say that Katt continued his philanthropy, because every name that he mentioned in this interview, like, people now know about them and will probably go and look up their material to see if what he said was true. So he gave them an alley-oop, a lot of people. And I just saw Mike Epps a little while ago say, "Why didn't you mention me? Like, you go and break the internet and you didn't mention me. We did next Friday together. You could have thrown me at alley-oop." So I think Katt, like, as much as we say he had a lot of scores to settle, but I think he just spoke his truth. He spoke his piece, and he was the gift that kept giving this interview, for real.
Thank you. Yes, Jay, go for it. Jay Anderson, go for it. Then Black.
Two things. So I think we have to remember that this was 20-something years ago. So everyone's memory might be a bit skewed, right, in terms of what happened. So I'm not going to say everyone, remembers things exact. They could do, but it's a long time ago and they've never really had to think about it since then. The second thing is, in regards to the Ricky Smiley piece, so I saw the interview too with, I saw what he said on his radio show and what Ice Cube said. If he is running around and saying these things, we have to remember what Katt cares about. So if he's running around saying these things, that could imply that Katt stole his role, or Katt had a hand in taking that role away from him. That's something that Katt cares about, because he doesn't want to be represented that way. That's why he spoke so much about helping people and trying to take care of people, people like grassroots. So that to me kind of stood out to me, that he didn't say it, but that could be implied, with him, with why Katt feels that way, into, having someone do that to him, even though Ricky, he says nothing but positive things about Katt, even after that, up to now. At that time, it could be something that Katt has, inside. So yeah, I'll end it there.
Thank you. Black, go for it.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that, with all this truth that's been laid out, like I said, I've already known this already. My question is, do you really think that this is going to impact anyone's career? People come out and say Kevin Hart's not funny. People come out and say Katt Williams not funny. Everyone that was mentioned was successful in their own right. Katt Williams may not agree with how they got their success and the measures that they took. That's his opinion. He wants to share that. That's perfectly fine. I don't think it's going to mess with anyone's career, though. Like, maybe a little bit was said in Steve, because it's the evidence of being out there. It's now there, the actual evidence, and not just the speaking of it. But everything that we know about Kevin Hart, we know he put on a dress. He put a dress on years ago. So he's successful from that. Okay. But my thing is this, I'm very old school, where how a man makes his bones, it's not my business. To be honest with you, it's not my business. Either I rock with it or I don't rock with it. But what I'm not going to do is come on here and sit up here and talk about how Kojo makes his bones. That's his business. Whether I agree or disagree, that's just me. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Kojo. I appreciate that. Rarely do I go over a minute, but go ahead.
No problem, John. No problem. Anyone else wanted to say their quick thoughts before I change the question? Before I change that question? Anyone else? All right, I'm going to change the question because y'all took too long. All right, cool. So the question I'm now asking then, because obviously people are obviously saying and talking about obviously Katt, I'm going to quickly shift it and we'll come back onto Katt. Shannon Sharpe, people complained about his interview style, complained that, they felt like his interview style was, to say the least, lackluster. He doesn't have the skills, he doesn't have the ability to really put on a good interview. I want to get your perspectives, guys. Like, what's your thoughts to this, like, in respect to Shannon Sharpe? You can get 3 minutes on this one. I'll put up 3 minutes because I know you guys are going to want to explain some stuff. So the timer will be running. But who wants to talk about this? So Shannon Sharpe situation in terms of his interview skills. Do you agree with that perspective that he doesn't know how to interview, and this was a bad interview from his perspective in terms of his working skills in this one? Yes, Mr. VIP, go for it.
Listen, Shannon Sharpe, when he was on the Skip show, like when him and Skip did the ESPN thing, man, he had me rolling like every single episode. He's a funny guy, right? And he's country. That's what I actually liked about him. He was authentic, he was real, he was country, and he basically has his own style of like putting these things together. And now that he has the Club Shay thing, which also started on ESPN, like he was talking about sports and everything, but he would have celebrities and athletes come on and do like his own Club Shay thing. As soon as the ESPN thing fell apart, now he can go solo with it. He has more freedom, but he also has more journalistic, a more journalistic approach, right? Because it's no longer just about football and NBA and all these other things. I don't have a problem with how he interviewed Katt at all. It's pretty much the same way that he interviews everybody. It's a conversation, a drink and a conversation, and it's a way to bring out the depth of the interview without, interrogation. It's more like a conversation than an interrogation. So I ain't got no problem with his style. And he does study, he does prepare, he does a lot of work. He's very knowledgeable about the person that's in front of him. So that's why I rate Shannon's style of interviewing.
It's funny. It's funny that everybody is complaining about the interview except for the interviewee. You know what I'm saying? The interviewee gave him his props for doing his due diligence of finding research and things to ask him questions about or whatnot. That's what Shannon Sharpe does. He's a journalist. His thing is to go and figure out what questions need to be asked and let you do the rest. Let you answer those questions. You guys have never complained about any other interview that he's done. He done sat down with Dwayne. He done sat down with Tabitha, all of these things. Not one complaint. Now there's a complaint because Katt had something to say. Katt wanted to talk. I personally, and this is just me, sometimes I personally prefer interviews like this. Let that person either get what they need to get off their chest or hang themselves in the process. It's one of the two things that's going to happen in it. Sometimes people need a moment to talk. And if an interviewer just keeps giving them questions, nothing really gets flushed out. Sometimes interviewers come in with agendas. I don't want the interviewer's agenda. I came to hear about the interviewee. So let me hear about them. So me personally, I don't have a problem with it. I know a lot of people here, sometimes they're not regulars to this channel, have a problem with it because this is Kojo's style. So that's why I'm here, because I like the style that Kojo has. When he puts people up here, he allows them to talk because the interview is about them. Let them talk. Now, Black, they say, hey, if you're going to spend all your time talking about other people, what you doing? But if that's what they want to do on their interview, that's their time to do it. This man chased him for some years to get this interview. What are you going to sit here, cut him off at every turn? Shannon done did what he was supposed to do, and he about to go to the bank off of this interview. I'm not mad. I'm about to try to take some notes and figure out how to do it too.
Definitely going to the bank. I agree and then disagree with what you said, Jay. I don't think that Shannon is a journalist. I think he's a football player first, and I think he understands that because he has that conversational type of interview, like JR was saying. And I like that. I appreciate that because it sounds like you're in on a conversation more so than a back and forth. He has a staff that looks up and does the research, which is good. I love some things they pointed out though about his childhood, how he grew up. He grew up homeless. He moved from Ohio to Florida. I like all those things I really didn't know about Katt because I don't follow like that with anyone. But it was refreshing to hear that piece of it and hear Katt talk about that side of it. So yeah, I think we got to give Shannon a little bit more, a little more grace when it comes to that, just because he's not a natural journalist. Football came on, started talking back and forth with someone on their show, on their platform, and does it again. Then he created the Club Shay. He's getting better at it, but that's not his go-to for real, for real. That's all.
Well, I'm sorry, I should have clarified. Football journalist, not a.
I was going to say that I think with this interview, I think the reason why people are criticizing, because I agree with Jack. I've seen clips of his shows before with other people, whether it's Brittany Renner or whatever. I've never really heard anyone come out and say that, oh, he's not a good interviewer or anything like this. I guess this criticism is the first time that I'm personally hearing it, and I'm not really a watcher of his show. I think it's more the situation that it's probably the first interview that he didn't seem like he was in control of the interview, and I think Katt was in control of this whole conversation. But I think that was what was needed, and I think one thing that it appears that Shannon is quite good at is knowing what his role is in real time. And I think he realized in that time that I don't need to try and control where this is going to go. I just need to kind of set the tone and let Katt Williams do what he's going to do, and it will find its way to its destination. And I think that's pretty much what happened. He doesn't come across as a journalist. He comes across as a pundit. He comes across as a football pundit at the very most, and he's a pundit that is now doing interviews, and he comes across as a good interviewer at the very least. Sorry. So I think he handled the situation well. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel uncomfortable or awkward or static or like there wasn't enough to talk about. It flowed pretty well. And I think that's in the situation like this where Katt Williams is responding to things, that I think that's the kind of thing that you need. I don't think you need somebody trying to troubleshoot or trying to fit the conversation into a specific way. I think it just needs to flow. And I think that's why it did so well. So yeah, I think people are saying it just because it felt that Shannon was kind of taken off guard a little bit by some of the things that Katt Williams was saying, but I guess he probably wasn't expecting Katt Williams to be so honest and open and honest. And sometimes that's the beauty that you find in those moments, is when, I mean, I've seen it happen on Kojo's channel many times where somebody he's interviewing says something completely wild and left, and he's like, oh, this is new, let's look at that a little bit more. And that's part of the beauty of having that, I guess, semi-structured interview that has the space to flow, but there is a point to where the conversation is going.
I think people are just looking for an excuse, as you would expect, to be honest with you. I saw Michael Blackson make a complaint on the Shade Room saying, just blame Shannon. Shannon, he likes drama. He doesn't like drama, to be honest with you. That's not his interview style. I think Shannon is the type of person who is easy to talk to. He is known throughout the industry in general. So people, just on a man-to-man level at the least, right? It's, he's known that he's a great guy. He's, people talk to him in general, and he's just transporting what happens behind the scenes in front of the camera. If people have watched his podcast with Ocho, they will understand how he does things in general, like what they talk about. So I think people are just looking for an excuse, try to blame him. He did nothing wrong. I mean, I think you're very silly as an interviewer if the person you're interviewing says certain things, instead of listening and allowing them to speak on it, you want to cut them off and talk about what you want to talk about. I think that's crazy. Don't even interview people if you're going to do that. And the second thing is, you have to remember, a lot of people do come on Shannon's show already prepared to speak on certain things. They're already prepared to open up. Shannon was ready with his cards. You didn't know Katt was going to come and say that. But as I said, a smart interviewer is going to let that person speak. He did speak some jokes. I don't know if I'm going to have another show after this, but ultimately, look, a good interviewer lets that person speak, and I think he did a wonderful job in giving all of us to talk about. Look, let's face it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I also think he did a fantastic job. I think that, like, as an interviewer, one is to be a guide to a conversation. I think with somebody like Katt, to be able to hang on to all of the intricacies, because he was able to tie it back multiple times. So that's what I personally look for in a good interviewer. If you're able to hang on it, tie it back in, let that person go on a tangent, but bring it back. And I think that Shannon had a very good way of doing that. I think he's become a better interviewer in that whenever he was getting into something touchy with Katt, he would share something vulnerable in order to, to let Katt know, like, this is a safe space. And say what y'all will about Jason Lee, but a lot of people go on his platform and say he creates this safe space for me to just, talk and to be honest and to do that. So I think Shannon is going to get an A with me. He created a safe space. He himself was vulnerable in order to get Katt to, tell truths. He was able to hang on through Katt's, whimsical tale, through, I call it the little Wizard of Oz hole that he takes people down. And he was able to bring it back. So for me, it's a plus. I think it had all the good things of a good interview: vulnerability, humor, facts, a lot of truths, and a little bit of tea. So he did a good job, in my opinion. But that's it.
Appreciate it. Has everyone said their piece in this? Fantastic. Let's move on. All right, cool. So back to Katt Williams then, in the situation, right? I want to ask a question. It's a quick one. It's a quick one. It might not be a quick one. I know, Black, you addressed it, but I want to ask the panelists. Luda caught the hardest stray, but not only did Luda catch this stray, his wife caught a major stray too. He basically called her a basic light-skinned woman and said, this is a part of the module that you get when you decide to sell over your soul. You have to cut off your hair. For him anyway, he had to cut off his hair, choose a basic light-skinned woman. Did we agree with this sentiment that he put across? Do we agree with that? Do we think that Katt's exaggerating there? Do we think Katt's hyperboling? Do we think Katt's just doing a little bit too much in that scenario? Can we see where he's coming from? What's your perspective on this, on the Luda bullet that was given? Because that is quite a deep a thing to say, because that's someone's wife as well. You know what I mean? So it's quite a heavy touch. Who would like to take that on? I've set you at 2 minutes for your responses. Who would like to take that on? Yes, Jay Anderson. Thank you. Go for it.
I'll go first. I think we have to remember there's a lot of inside information that we don't know, and that may have not been completely random in terms of choosing to have a shot at him. So we have to remember that there's so much that we're never going to know, especially with the way Luda responded. That shows me there's way more to what's going on than just what we think it is. Now, in terms of what was said, I mean, no one is really going to argue that when you're given certain opportunities, it comes with certain requirements. People will tell you to do certain things. That could be something as simple as cutting off your hair, or doing things behind the scenes that are, if people found out that you did, they would have an issue. And whether we like it or not, whether that's the US or the UK, it is a conversation about, when people get to a certain level, why do many Black men choose a similar type of woman, who looks in the same way? It's not a conversation we're starting today. It's a conversation that's been there for a very long time. So I think Katt was just making a point. I'm not saying it was okay. I mean, there's no point going for someone's wife. Keep that out of it. But I think it's just a point that a lot of Black people discuss, in terms of, let's call it rites of passage. When you reach a certain level, there are certain things that people do. I guess it depends who they're around, but there are certain things that people do. And I'll just end it there.
Appreciate that. Who's next?
This ain't really to them. I was like, damn, I'd have caught a stray. How I get a stray? Like,
how'd I get in it?
I was like, shoot, can I? But then I was like, damn, I'm not even a basic one, because I ain't even got one of them. I ain't even with the man. I just had to lighten the room for real quick. But yeah, I agree with Jay. Say we don't know the ins and outs. A lot of things. It could be some truth behind a lot of it. We do see a lot of it going on, that a lot of people that we perceive may have compromised do have certain things when they get to a certain platform. You know what I'm saying? Majority of these people that he did highlight do have a lighter shade woman in their life. So is it a coincidence, or is it just something else? I don't know. Sometimes you do happen to meet that person, and that's just who you end up being with. It could be just that simple. I don't really know the details. I was just like, dang, Luda. All he asked was like, how did you and Luda when y'all had a crossroads? And they said, no, y'all was in a room with the Illuminati. I was like, what? It was just like that scene off of House Party when they had the Illuminati scene. I was like, what just happened? I don't know what's happening right now. I don't. Okay. So that part I was a little up and down about, but then Luda made the song and I was like, oh, well, you're not denying it. So
Go for it. Oh no, who hasn't spoken? Go for it.
I was
Go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I don't think he said anything that other people haven't been saying for many years of the type of women that successful black men go for once they get to a certain point in their career. I think it's just the way he packaged it was really funny. So people have kind of ran with it. But it's the same thing that most people have said. Like, you know, they kind of go for a woman who looks a specific type of way. But I don't even know who Hazel either, just from Jay's reaction. I'm just like, that's probably really funny. Um, but yeah, but I also feel like in Ludacris's defense as well, in a way, when you're in those kind of circles, a lot of the women that get invited to parties or events kind of look like that anyway. So the chances of you just meeting a woman who looks like that and marrying her is high. So it's not necessarily that was because of something that he did. He could have just, she was in around his circles, he was attracted to her, they clicked, and the rest is history. So I think it's a tricky one because you can see both sides of it happening. But I just feel, I feel like I think Katt Williams, he thought of the joke, it came out, it landed, it is what it is. But yeah, I think poor Ludacris kind of caught straight. I haven't heard his response, so I'm not really sure what he said in response, but I'm assuming it wasn't something that helped clear the air. So, but yeah, it was hilarious, and there is definitely some truth in there, I guess.
Yeah. Who's next?
Yeah, listen. He said, weird face, light skinned women who don't give interviews. Like, speaking on someone's wife is wild like that. Like, his wife is nothing to do with his whatever beef or grudge he's got with Ludacris. Wife ain't nothing to do with it. That's kind of why, to me, some of them strays was unnecessary because he didn't even need to say that. He could have just talked about his beef with Ludacris and how Ludacris got his role. And at the end of the day, Ludacris is another guy. He ain't even a comedian. Like, he had a radio station that everybody knows and a rap career that everybody knows about, and transitioned into acting. So if he was told, listen, like, if you cut your braids and get a low cut haircut, then you stand more chance of being marketable for roles or getting a specific role. And he chose to do it. And he's now 10 sequels in to the same movie. Like, if you've seen one Fast and Furious, you've seen them all. All right. But he's managed to be a part of this franchise and make a killion. So that was just hater talk to me. Like, if you got a personal rivalry, that's cool, but he didn't need to mention man's wife like that.
Who wants to go next? Who hasn't spoken yet? Yes, Max.
Yes, Max.
So I just have to, like, I guess for me on this one, how do we know that it's not true? And we're just gonna say allegedly and hypothetically, because he was throwing out satire, he was throwing out elements of truth mixed with jokes, mixed with lies, mixed with all of this stuff, right? And you have to sit here and try to decipher, okay, what was the truth, right? But I think in a bigger scheme of things is the message that selling yourself or selling yourself short, selling your talents, to the highest bidder. Is that what we are supposed to be doing, or should we just be going with the raw talent? So I think that he's just trying to shift your eyes. Like, Luda, poor baby, but I mean, he might have been a delusion, or there might be some truth to this. We don't know. Like, he could have just been, poor little baby. He a middle child, and he getting the brunt of it. But I think the bigger picture is something that we do have to ask ourselves. Are we willing to continue to pay into people like Kevin Hart, who aren't that funny, but, they got the most Netflix specials, or, I'm able to see him in my city? Do we continue to pay for somebody who we don't feel like is funny, or do we find that comedy club, that hole in the wall, and go see some real talented people? Do we continue to stream, artists that we can't stand, but there's rap battles and there's singers that sing underground? So I think it challenged your whole, why do you like them, is basically what I got from it. So I think Luda was just an example of, why do you like Luda? Why do you keep watching Fast and Furious? Because if you've seen one, you've seen them all. Was he good in it? Or did you just watch it because Ludacris was in it? So he's making you say, why do you like these people? Steve Harvey, he came for him. How is that your favorite comedian and you haven't seen him on nothing but Family Feud every day between 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? You haven't seen a show of his. He has not made you sniggle, giggle, or laugh since he was available on DVDs. So I just feel like he was just shaking the baby and seeing what came out. So I don't know. Luda, we don't know if it's true or not. I'm going to just leave that there.
Yeah. That's a good point. I do think that that it would have come off a little bit more like, wow, if Katt had predicted this with Luda, like before all this happened. But Luda is on the 10th movie. It is public knowledge what they make per movie for Fast and Furious. So he could have used that in terms of what he was saying as a joke more so than actual facts. So I agree with what you're saying, Mercy D. It's really hard to differentiate between what was actually a joke, what was satire, what was real. Well, the real parts, like I said, we already knew those. So with the satire jokes and everything like that, it's kind of a mixture there. It's just really, really interesting. Like you said, Mercy D, you said Katt went after Steve Harvey about, the things that he's done. And he went after everyone, but I don't know if we're going to get to this. And just throw your hand up, Kojo, if you are. I want to just touch on what he said about earthquake. The earthquake situation was kind of interesting to me because he said he's a fan of earthquake. So why are you going to go in here and say this man can't read? Why would you do that to someone you're a fan of? So that kind of threw me off too. So I don't know if we're going to talk about that either. But the Ludo situation, these are things we already knew coming in. We knew about the 10th move and all that stuff. So yeah. Not sure if that was real, true, or just a story.
Cool. Anyone hasn't spoken on this topic? Has everyone spoken on this Ludacris situation? Luda. I mean, personally, listen, let me just say, I think, it was an uncomfortable, quote unquote, perceptive truth. Let me say that because obviously it's perception, right? But it was an uncomfortable potential truth that he's saying, right? Because it could be true, right? And there could be a thing behind it, With his intellect, I wish he would have gone a bit further and talked maybe a little about colorism, maybe to show that you really were understanding what was actually happening, rather than dropping a dime and then be like, yeah, well, it's like, so it kind of leaves it a little bit exposed, looks a little bit haterish. I wouldn't say haterish, but it looks a little bit almost like you're dogging them out a little bit, in some sense as well, right? He could have just said, listen, hey, they get the same type of woman, who are usually light skinned and the same type of woman. But he had to add same basic type. It's like, he knew what he was doing when he said that. Like, it's going to cause issues. It's going to cause carnage. So there was actually no reason for him to kind of add the basic in there. And that's what gets the clips and the sound bites. You know what I'm saying to you? That's fighting words. I can't lie to you. You know what I mean? Like, irrespective of how he feels about Ludacris, and maybe he feels he's a Illuminati plant or whatever, that is fighting words for man to man. For you to call another man's wife basic, yeah, you could catch hands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could. No, I'm not going to catch hands on it. You know what I mean? But maybe if it's a charity fight, I might do it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna give, or some money to get our thing up. Then yeah, maybe I'll do it. But for me, it was that little bit too far. Just that little comment, that extra word, just takes it slightly over the edge. But I understood what he was saying. I just think he didn't need to go that far by saying basic. So anybody out there, please, if you're going to tell the truth like Katt Williams and your money not long like him, don't be calling people basic and their wives. You can get killed for less, okay? You can get killed for less, all right? Because he told us already he keeps a heater with him at all times. I'm joking, he didn't say that. All right, cool. Let me shift it then. If everyone's spoken on the Ludacris aspect as well, there was obviously the conversation about the dress situation too, which comes into play, and it's quite a big kind of piece. He spoke about Dave Chappelle, Martin Lawrence as well, Brandon T. Jackson. He spoke about how black men tend to end up in these positions where they have to take a dress in their career in order to kind of get somewhere in some sense or form. I want to ask your perspective. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a take on it? Do you understand where he was coming from? Do you see that there's a pattern of this particular behavior? Or again, is this something that's a little bit more outlandish about the situation with Katt Williams and his, I guess, some of his comments that he made on Shannon Sharpe's, platform? Yes, Mr. VIP, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's clearly an agenda or something that is put to black male actors on a regular basis. And it's probably sold to them as in, if you do this, it's going to be hilarious. Like, they're going to love it. But, at the end of the day, these people have a choice. And if they really want to impress a new market or boot down the door so that they're now in white households a lot more, and that's what it takes. Unfortunately, some of them are going to do it. Hence, Martin Lawrence. Eddie Murphy's done it. And yeah, for some people, it may be hilarious to see a black man like that. For me, I don't like it at all, personally. Obviously, my opinion is just my own, but I don't think that if you put on a dress and first of all emasculate yourself and then you're making movies and stuff that's going to be out there forever, after your career is finished, you're going to feel shamed at some points looking back at that. Like your kids seeing you in a dress, like acting like a female and all them thing there, that's wild to me. So I think it's something that keeps on continuing to be offered to them as a way to, and it's these gatekeepers that are doing it. So it's a way to advance their career. How much do you care about your popularity? What are your motivations for being in the industry? Is it to get the most viewers? Is it to make the most money? Or is it to study the craft and be the best at your craft? And I think this is why Katt Williams has a problem. I think as hard as he worked, his sole purpose is to master his craft and be good at it. And that's why he respects the comedians that do it that way. Right? But yeah, it's something that's going to continue to happen though. Like, because unfortunately the powers that be may see this as, people rightly think, a humiliation ritual for black men. And if they're prepared to humiliate themselves on the masses like that, then, here's a couple $1 million to do it.
Thank you very much, JR. Anyone, and who wants to go next? Any other thoughts on this dress situation? Do you agree with it? Do you think it's a bit wild? Do you have a different take on it? Yes, Precious.
I was going to say, I think this conversation is interesting because I was watching the Joe Budden podcast and they were talking about this specific point. And I think Joe Budden kind of tried to put Melissa Ford on the spot by asking what she thought about this. And she made a good point of saying that there were a lot of white comedians who had done the exact same thing of dressing up as a woman and for the comedic effect. And I guess there was a little bit of pushback of saying what was different for white comedians versus black comedians. And I think a lot of it is coming from how black men perceive their own masculinity. I think black men have a very strong relationship with how they perceive their masculinity. So I think when they have to then do some cross-dressing, it affects them more than it would maybe have affected a Robin Williams, or or something like that. But it's also interesting as well, because I think about it now, and as when JR was talking, I was trying to think about how many white comedians have we actually seen do the cross-dressing thing. And actually, when I look at it, it's not a ton. There has been a lot of white actors in general who've done that. But as for like actual comedians who've turned into actors, not a lot. I know obviously Robin Williams had a very successful run at doing Miss Doubtfire, but he only really did one and then it didn't do it again. So it's interesting. And then you look at people like Jim Carrey, who was always very outlandish, very eccentric. He also never dressed up in a dress either. So that's interesting. And then when I think about Eddie Murphy, after he dressed up, his career kind of started to decline, because after Nutty Professor Clumps 2, his career started to decline after that. Same a little bit, I guess, if you think about Martin Lawrence, because even after he did the Martin show, yes, there was Bad Boys, but again, his career also started. So I kind of can see why a lot of black comedians or black actors find that to be a really tough thing to do, because of their relationship with their masculinity, and also because it doesn't tend to really help your career in the grand scheme of things. Not a lot of people who've done it seem to have like done a massive like trajectory into being a megastar anyway. So I guess for some, the risk doesn't really provide the benefit in a way. But it's interesting. I can understand why somebody would feel that way, and feel like they're being emasculated. But then I guess I think about other actors who've dressed up as women, but they've still been able to keep their masculinity. Like, for example, like The Rock has done it before, where he's dressed up in, something that is not the most masculine thing, but he's also kept the perception of his masculinity. But maybe that's because he's only done it once or twice. It's a very complex conversation, but I do think a lot of it stems from how black men view their masculinity, and how that kind of goes very much opposed to that masculinity. Because I guess a lot of white comedians and white actors I haven't really heard them complain much about having to do that, or having to, so, but yeah.
Precious.
So being comedy is like one of my very first love languages as far as movies goes. Coach, I don't know if you was in improv, but I've told you guys I've done improv before. I've been in improv classes. When you do sketch comedy, sometimes in these settings, whoever you're working with is who you have to work with, and you have roles. Sometimes men have to take on roles as women. Sometimes women have to take on roles as men. Now, unless we're doing a live performance, we don't necessarily always have to dress up, but we still have to portray some of those aspects of doing it. A lot like what Precious is saying is it's a higher number for some odd reason that black men have to be in dresses. Not saying a lot of white men are not in them, because I've watched a lot of sketch comedy growing up. I watched a lot of comedy shows from Benny Hill, all of that stuff. These men ran around in dresses from time to time for the sake of the comedy, the skit, or whatever it is. But for some reason, black men, once they're in a dress, they want to keep putting you back in a dress. And I think that's what the problem is. And that's what Katt is trying to refrain from, him personally. Dave Chappelle has mentioned it now. Dave Chappelle's very first movie is Men in Tights, Robin Hood Men in Tights. He was low-key in a dress. He was still masculine in the dress. Every last one of them men that was in a dress on that set was still masculine in that dress. So I've already done this. I've already did it. I've moved on from this. Why, when I get onto Martin's set, is there a dress in my trailer? Dave Chappelle has openly spoke about this. Like, why do I have to put this on again? I have proven myself that I can do it. I don't have a problem with it. But why do I have to continuously do this to please y'all? And I think that's where we're getting at with this thing. It's not necessarily that it's just putting men in dress and make them feel some type of way. Why do black men keep being asked to do it? We watched Robin Williams as Mrs. Doubtfire. Did we see him in another dress? We watched a few people in dresses and stuff, but they don't keep being asked every single role that they in a dress. Okay, that's where I stop at though. And that's my point. Is black men just keep getting asked over and over.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else hasn't spoken on this dress situation? Black, have you spoken on the dress situation?
Yeah. I definitely think there's an issue when it comes to black men having to portray as a woman. I don't understand the concept in general when we have female actors that can do whatever part that they're acting as in any way. So that part I don't really get, and I don't really get how the success of it works, because it's been said that when you do it, your career is supposed to blossom, supposed to bloom and grow, right? So Martin was at the height of his career, I think, during the Martin show. So when he did Big Mama's House, he wore the dress, but I didn't see his career actually blow up from that. I think he's already done his stand up. So I don't know where it went from there. But then I've seen others where they did put it on and then they blew up. So I don't know the dress attachment to career because it's kind of all over the place a little bit for me. But I do think there is a huge problem with that and asking black men to do so when there are women who can play the part. We talk about, or in media, they talk about how if someone has a disability to play those roles, don't have someone who doesn't have that disability to actually pretend to play that role. You have actors who have disabilities that want to strive to play roles. There's roles for everyone to take. So why have someone else play a different role that's not organically them? So that's why I'll leave it.
I agree. No, go ahead, Mercy. I got us. Sure. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I want to throw something in there. White Chicks. I think most people look at that movie as one of the best movies, that was created. And it was, we don't have an issue there. We just find it funny. So I think it really depends what's being portrayed and how it's being portrayed, because that running joke with a black man in a dress has been there for decades, right? It's something that's always been there. It's not going to go away. And there does seem to be something there. But I guess it's how you look at it, because obviously the Wayans brothers, they were taking the mick, They knew what they was doing. It wasn't like they had to as a rite of passage. They knew what they was doing with this particular movie. It was satire in a way. If that movie probably wouldn't fly now. I mean, I don't know how society feels right now, but yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to highlight, that sometimes it does kind of work. But if we talk about Katt and what he was trying to say, to me, it was just about principles. If you're from the beginning saying you're not going to do A, you're not going to do B, you're not going to do C because it's emasculative, because it's disrespectful to who you are. When you get a bit of money, then you go and do it. Now I'm questioning your integrity. This is not the Wayans brothers. This is not, I know you mentioned Tyler Perry, but this is not Tyler Perry where you're in control, and you choose to do it. That's a different conversation, And I do agree, Tyler Perry plays a better woman than he plays a man in these movies. I understand that. But I think it's just down to your integrity. So just put a bunch of money in your face, and this is what you're going to do? I've had deals on the table. I chose not to jeopardize my integrity. Dave Chappelle has. Many other people have. So you can't come and tell me nothing. When you jeopardize your integrity, you've taken on this 20 million, 30 million for you to shuck and jive in a jest, for people to laugh at you, people to disrespect you, Yeah, I have an issue with that. Before I stop, I was speaking what Precious was saying in terms of the masculinity aspect. 100%. Masculinity is very different in the black community compared to the white community, even down to how the woman, look at it and receive it. You can imagine in white circles, they will laugh at something like that. What type of black woman wants a man who dresses up in a dress as part of his career, as part of what he wants to do? Not really. Most women are not going to say that's what they want. You're not really going to laugh about it. They're going to say, okay, I understand, but let's not do that again. I'm from the hood in London, but I also lived in a very white area, a couple of years ago. And I can say they're very, very different in how they do things. So I think bear that in mind. There is a difference between the black comedians or people and white.
My bad. I wasn't fully there. My bad. Mercs, go for it. Thank you.
What do you say? Well, Jay, you summed it up. But no, those were the things that I was gonna highlight. Just There are movies that I have found extremely hilarious. I used to watch Tyler Perry plays like on the VHS. Like I, it was entertaining. It was something to watch. But I think the core of how you got there, and I think he pointed out it was, let's just say it was Kevin Hart who was like, I would never. So what he was pointing out again was the principle. You said you would never, but for the right dollar amount, you will. So he's just pointing out just the inconsistency. So Jay, you covered everything, but I do think that there is a confidence. It's just like wearing pink, like when that was a big thing for men to wear pink when camera, like it was a big thing. So for a man to own a feminine role and he shows his range as an actor and things like that, I do think that is an artistic ability. Everybody can't play those roles. Everybody can't do it well. So I think in some regard, and I'm not a man or a black male, so I don't know what it feels like. It could be totally emasculated. It could be like the thing you want to run the furthest from. But as a consumer of entertainment, movies, etc., I don't see a problem with it as a whole for a man to play in drag, cross-dressing in a woman's role. I think how you got there is going to be the determinant of that, or why you stay or why you continue to do that. If it's for the dollar, whatever, that's fine. But I feel like, let's just say for Tyler Perry, it was brand development. You know what I mean? He used this cross-dressing woman in order to create the empire that he does have. So for him, he saw it as an asset. He didn't see it as a emasculating trait to play a woman. I don't know what Ricky Smiley has gotten out of playing a woman. We saw what the Wayne brothers have gotten out of playing a woman. Like, so some people it has served them, other people it has been a hindrance, or it really wasn't worth it in their career. So, but I don't see no problem with it. I'll still laugh. I'm gonna pay to watch the movie.
Do you think I was just gonna say, do you think it makes difference with the Wayne brothers, because I think they wrote White Chicks, didn't they? That was their film. Is that why? Oh, there's an echo. Oh, there's an echo. Is it just me?
Hold on. Yeah, you're good. No, you're good.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying, I think maybe that's why it feels maybe a bit different for them, because they wrote the movie. I think a lot of it, they produced the movie or something. They had a lot of creative control over that movie. So it was their sort of choice to do it. Granted, though, there wasn't a White Chicks 2. They didn't do it again. But also their careers didn't take off super, super high either. So it was a big success in a vacuum, but overall for their careers, it didn't do much. So it's a tricky thing.
Go for it, Max. You wanted to reply to Precious? Go for it. Oh, no, I think she wants to get off. Jokes. I think it's a multifaceted idea, right? And I think the key word. I think Jay mentioned it as well. Merx has mentioned it. Precious mentioned it as well. Black and VIP mentioned it. I think the reality of the situation is that what I see with the dress is that there is an agenda with the dress, but it's not the dress alone. It has to be coupled with the option of, will you compromise your own integrity? I think that's what Katt was actually highlighting. So the dress itself, listen, let me be very honest with you. Some of the great comedians have worn dresses. One of the comedians of, especially in the UK, Ron Atkinson, he's worn a dress before. Ron Atkinson, Mr. Bean. If Mr. Bean wears several dresses, we ain't gonna say nothing. You are not gonna ask Mr. Bean if he's gay or not. You don't care. Mr. Bean is hella funny, right? Because we don't look at it that way. But there is and I think it has to be looked at in context when we talk about the dress, because I think it has to be coupled with your integrity being compromised, rather than it being an artistic expression where you're trying to be a comedian. Like, I loved Martin playing his character. I can't remember what the name of the lady was that he played in his particular show. Shanae is hilarious. I love when Jamie Foxx does Wanda in his stand-up specials. Wanda, it is funny because we take the mick out of each other. I think we just need so there's also an understanding of cultural where we stand culturally at the time as well, right? Because we have to understand that different times and seasons of culture, certain things are going to be more permissible, right? So certain things are going to be more acceptable as to what is masculinity and what is femininity and what is for boys and what is for girls, right? Those strict gender lines that we can have. So that's also an important part too. So, you know, I think it really does depend on, I think, the context of the dress being given. Are they telling you should be in a dress? Because that's kind of the pressure point. It's like they're trying to get you in a dress. And it's like, I don't need to be in a dress to be funny. That's different then. If you don't want to be that, that's you. If you came up with the idea and said, listen, I think it'd be funny if I play a woman or whatever, that's your business. You know what I mean? That's what you wanted to do. Yeah, I don't care. You play it 10 times if you need to play it, right? But that's what your artistic expression is to be, right? But unfortunately, it's like some people who have taken the dress have actually not benefited from taking the dress, right? As well. So, I mean, that could be said that it could be that it's actually not a positive thing, or it could be said that these people also did not have the talent to also go that far. And unfortunately, it is what it is. Could be that too, right? Because as Katt said, if your talent is a talent, whether you work for Satan, whether you work for Jesus, it seems to be making its way up to the very top. So, you know, like maybe their talents weren't that great. Those who took the dress just weren't that great. You know what I mean? Maybe that could also be a possibility. Any other points on this before we ask another question? I don't know if any of you guys got a question that you wanted to ask, or at some point on the interview that you wanted to address that we haven't addressed yet. You can address that if you want to, because I know there's a lot of the interview there. Yes, Jay.
So I know there's one point, and that's because I'm in a rock and a hard place with this one, because Guy is actually my friend, Guy Torrey, and Guy Torrey is over Fat Tuesdays. And he's been dealing with Fat Tuesday since his start of his career, pretty much, or whatnot. And I know Katt had brought up that a certain amount of comedians had came through Fat Tuesdays or whatnot. This is where I say some of the things are from Katt's POV, is just from his POV, and it's not factual all the way, because Guy had cleared it up that yes, Cedric, Steve Harvey, and them came through, never performed, but they came through Fat Tuesdays. They came over, they was there for events that Guy has had or whatever and stuff like that. What was her name? Tiffany Haddish tried out for Fat Tuesdays, but didn't make it. And I know Katt stands on this because this is part of his come up. Fat Tuesdays was part of where he started as well. And so he needs to go and clarify that, what he meant by that part, because I have yet to know Guy as a liar. Guy stands on integrity. Guy has footages. He has photos of everybody who's been on his stage, who hasn't. He's not trying to take sides with anybody on this situation. I know he had to just clarify it for everybody that some of these artists that Katt had mentioned, they did not actually perform on Fat Tuesdays. They've been to events there or whatnot. There's a difference in that part. So the wording that Katt uses, you got to kind of watch him too, because he's pretty smart and slick with his wording too. He knows how to make it word so you'll hear one thing, but he actually means another. So.
Anybody want to address any other points on the interview? Anything that stood out to you that you wanted to address? I was like, let me just address it. I think it'd be good to talk about. Yes, Jay Anderson.
Yeah, I'll go in a minute as well, but I think we haven't talked about this, but I guess the question is, and I'll give my answer, but how do we feel about Katt Williams in general? Is he on drugs or is he eccentric? Because that's something that Kevin's been saying for a while. In fact, Kevin, Luda, and Faison Love all alluded to it, that he's either crazy or on drugs, so don't believe him, as I said in the beginning. How do you all feel about that? Because I look at, in fact, I watched something today where Hazel E said, whatever the highest level in terms of IQ is, that's where Katt is. And I look at Katt in terms of his behavior as he has a very hyperactive brain. Like you see in an interview, he was doing all of this with his, you can't even see me, but my hands all over my knees and everything like that. And some people say that's a sign of an addict. Okay, there is a sign of an addict. But at the same time, that's also a sign of someone who has a hyperactive brain. That they may be able to, they're twitching everywhere, they can't sit still. Here's someone, he said he has to smoke weed in order to sleep, in order to eat. So he said, well, anytime he's gone to jail, he's been arrested, they've never been able to pin nothing on him, because he's been able to explain whatever it is that he has, whatever it is that's going on. He says, again, I don't know, but he says that's not what's going on, but it's what people are using to discredit him. So how do people feel about that, in general?
How do y'all feel about that?
I'll say to this point, and again, like I said, I have a friend that worked with him, and she had told me personally herself that he don't sleep. So a person that don't sleep, he takes a lot of cat naps, barely like 30 minutes out of the 24-hour day. You can be hyperactive, you can be going into delirium. So a lot of times when you go into delirium, it looks like you're an addict in some cases and stuff. You're doing weird and odd things. So there's explanation. So far as we know, they can only prove him to have smoking marijuana, and he states that, and that's it. There ain't not one other drug test that he has, or we don't know if he's taken them, but he hasn't had proof of any other drug in his system. And we seen him take a drink on Club Shay barely. So maybe he got a little drinking problem. I don't know, but I know he got a sleeping problem. And if you mix that, lack of sleep deprivation with just moving all over the place, you'll be erratic.
I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to what I said before, that he just appears very manic and very just high, like really at that top of that energy level. And as I said before, Katt Williams has always come across that way. He's never come across as this like super like chilled guy. He's always very just like, he's almost kind of like, is this a UK reference? But like Lee Evans, he's a comedian. He's a British comedian. He's very just up and down the stage, sweating profusely. He's got a lot of energy. Katt Williams always come across as that. So I don't know if it's drugs, but it might be ADHD. It might just be he's just more of a manic person. As Jay said, he has a history of struggling with sleep, and that definitely causes, for some people, it either causes you to just shut down, or it causes you to just go right through the roof, and you might be suffering from that delirium and things like that. So that's kind of the reason why I questioned it, because I guess previously I kind of thought it was a persona he did while he was on stage performing comedy, but it seemed that that's just him. And whether or not that's his presentation, or whether or not there's maybe some conditions there, I'm not sure. But when looking at some of the things he did say that do seem a bit unrealistic, that do seem a bit wild, not even to do with the comedians, even the thing about reading 3,000 books, that seems a bit far-fetched. So it's things like that kind of makes me think, maybe there is something there, maybe there is a thing there. But it's tricky. I don't think his telling his side of the story on things is what is, it should be what is the nucleus of that questioning. I think it's just his presentation and just some of those things that he said. He does seem a bit manic.
Yeah, so I can't sit here and say that Katt is on something. I can't. But we all have eyes, and in my eyes, what I've seen can suggest that. But I can't say definitively that this man was on something. What I can say is that people who say that they smoke marijuana do have that laced with something sometimes, and they still consider it to be marijuana. So I don't know, but when I look at his mugshot, and I look at the fact he's fighting a 13-year-old, certain things is like, okay, something is going on, something's not right, right? So it ain't just a fall down on Katt when I say that. I'm just saying that certain, like the eye test, he doesn't have the eye test when it comes to that, but who he was then versus who he is now could have been tremendous growth from that. So who knows? So I just can't come out and say the man was on something though.
In all fairness, Black, that 13-year-old was looking him eye to eye.
Y'all are bad.
I knew somebody was gonna say it. I knew it.
Fight,
I knew it.
Y'all are real bad. Y'all are real bad. When he comes after y'all, I'm gonna send him straight to your emails as well. So, but no, I do feel, and you know what it was when I watched the interview, I did get, not that he's on drugs. I got somebody that I don't know if the right word is neurodivergent because it covers a lot of bases when you say neurodivergent. There are several different things that come underneath that, but not in a sense of like it's almost as if like what I see is an over processing. So what's happening is like when I'm looking at him, he's his mind, the way it works with the intellect and the way he's obviously reared himself up from it as a child. It's almost as if like I was seeing the synapses going bam, 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 bam. And so when someone's synapses are doing that, and they're trying to talk to you, to us it's a bit overbearing, right? So you look at it, because I didn't get crazy. I just got a little bit. I think your word there, Precious, is a bit manic, right? You get a bit of that bit manic stuff, and again, that that kind of aspect. But I got a lot of intelligence, but I also got a lot of coherency from what he was saying. It wasn't word salad. Like, oh my God, like where did he just take us to? He took us to the moon or something. No offense to anybody from past Ready to Love people. Yeah, I've seen it and I've spoken about it in the past seasons. I have mentioned that certain people when I interview them, the mind just that. Under neurodivergent, word salad will come underneath it because they literally start and then they go completely off on they have a divergent tangent and it goes off and it never comes back. And we start talking about something completely different. I didn't get that from Katt. I was actually trying to see if he would do that. We don't get it from Katt. He answers a question. He might take it a little bit longer around it, but he answers a question, and it's quite direct in the way he does it. So for me personally, it's more of the fact that I think there's an over processing that happens. So it comes out looking the way it does because there's so much thoughts going on at the same time in the way he does it, which is probably what makes him so witty and so intelligent, and the way that he's able to craft his jokes and the way he thinks about his jokes as well. So I did kind of get that sense. I wasn't getting somebody who was on drugs or out of touch of reality. But as you have said, as well, if you are smoking marijuana, let's not pretend as if that's just going to be okay for you smoking that. Okay? All right? Okay? There's going to be some aspects to that which are going to probably take you a little bit some way. Okay? So, that is also something to consider as well in that respect.
Can I just clarify as well, because I see people in the comments going wild a little bit. So even using the term manic, it's not to say that when no one here is saying that he's crazy or mentally unwell. That's not what we're saying. And even when we're saying that his presentation is manic, that's not even to say that he has bipolar. You can have a manic presentation and not have bipolar. But he does have a manic presentation. And I agree with Kojo. I think it is that over processing of information. He's thinking very quickly. That's not to say that he's mentally unwell. He's very clearly very coherent. He had a whole almost 3-hour interview. If he was mentally unwell, he wouldn't be able to do that. So that's just to clarify, that's not what we're saying. I do agree though, that's why I said before, I think he might have ADHD. He does seem to be quite neurodivergent. And ADHD is not a mental health condition in that way. It's a neurodivergent condition. It's not mental health as being unwell. If that you can become unwell if it's left untreated, blah blah blah. But that's a whole other conversation. But just to clarify, because I think sometimes people, when they hear the word manic, they automatically assume that we're trying to call him unwell, and I think it's just being clear about what we're meaning in that aspect. But yeah, and yeah, I definitely don't think he's on drugs. He might be taking weed, but I don't think he's on any amphetamines or any narcotics or benzos or anything like that.
Definitely that. What was it you guys put in the chat? Sorry, you wanted to address something. Oh, message. Did you want to add? Sorry, apologies.
No. I think it was covered. I find people like that extremely fascinating. Meaning, because we clearly gathered, like Precious said, he's not mentally unwell. He's so much fun, and I have autistic family members, and I work in the airline, so I get to see like crazy people all day. So I find them fascinating in that they have this very blurred line, or just ADHD people they will take you on a journey, but you're going to end up at your destination. So I just think that it's interesting to watch somebody like that. And he literally blew in, and it's almost like if somebody's going to talk about you, he crafted his narrative. I know what you think about me. I know that you guys think that I'm crazy. I know that you guys think that I'm a drug addict. And he took time to dispel all of those rumors throughout the interview. And he also showed you, just instances of his intelligence. And he may not have, read 4,000 books, but I do believe he read the encyclopedia. I do believe that as a homeless child, he was spending time at the library and reading a numerous amounts of books. His verbiage, his diction, the way he uses his word choice, he's a lyricist. So to me, it is a clear and distinct, the way he even talked about Kanye West. If he is all of that, it's almost like a beauty in the mystery of what he's trying to dispel to you. That's why I said, depending on where you sit, in your intelligence or enlightenment or anything, you are going to take different things from Katt's interview. Some people walked away with a benediction and a lesson from a spiritual God. If you believe in the Illuminati, you feel like you walked away with secrets that you've been waiting somebody to confirm because you've been sitting there. You believe in numerology, he gave you something too. You believe in God, you feel like you got the whole prophecy in a 3-hour lesson. So, or if you're just a basic consumer of entertainment, you were entertained by this man within, whether you took the TikTok snippet, whether you watched the whole 3-hour interview. So I just feel like as far as his mental capacity, mental wellness, I think that even people who we deem to be mentally unwell or bipolar or this or that, they just have a view of the world that we have no perception or conception of. Like, they view the world just from a different lens. So I think what he was also trying to show to you is like, again, what do you think? Take all the frames off of the bicycle and the training wheels. What do you believe? Why do you like that person? He challenged every frame of a person within the interview. So if he is crazy, I'm following a crazy person. I believe him. I had fun with his interview. So I don't see it as a hindrance. I hope people don't. I'm not listening to him because he's crazy. Listen to a crazy person. They actually be speaking some truth sometimes. You ever sat on the subway and listen to that crazy person? They might actually got a gem for you. So I don't try to judge them because of their mental capacity or incapacitation. So, but if he's doing drugs, don't do the hard stuff. Crack is whack. And what did Whitney say? Stay safe. But no, I thought it was good.
Any other parts of the interview that you guys want to address before we jump off this great place? Yeah. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to address. Like I said, I think obviously the father one, but I think I want to do it on a separate interview live, talking about parenting and how that potentially obviously affected him because he left home quite early as well. But anything else that was to do with his speaks, his philanthropy, maybe, whatever. I know Black, you wanted to address something as well. Yes, Jay, go for it.
I don't want to say I want to necessarily address something about the interview itself, but as a whole, and I think because I love their craft, comedians' craft so much, I think we're in a space now where this interview has also proven that comedians are under attack. They are no longer allowed to just speak their truth, speak their mind, and let us laugh at it anymore. Everybody is politicking everything that they say now. We can't talk about this group because that's offensive. We can't talk about this community because that's offensive, and all of these things. And I do agree with Chris Rock in this statement. We have selective outrage. We pick and choose what we want to be mad about. This man just literally went down the list of whole comedians, and only one person on this panel really opposes it. You know what I'm saying? Like that part right there. So that just lets us know that, we just need to be in a space where comedy was supposed to be our relief from life. It was supposed to be our getaway, our escape, us have a moment to bond with one another over laughter. And we're getting to a space that we don't even have that anymore because comedians can't even get up there and just freely do anything. And that's part of what he is showing us by this interview, is that he still has his freedom, where a lot of them that are being paid certain amount of money are now in the spotlight. They no longer have that freedom to just be who they originally were. Comedians, people that made us laugh and took us through an escape for a moment. You know, that was their job. And I'm kind of in a space where I'm starting to miss that. I miss those days. I miss having Comic View. I miss having Def Comedy Jam. I miss being able to just turn on my TV and just laugh for about a half an hour to an hour and forget about it and relate to people the way we know how to relate to people. So, and I just want us to just all think about that right now when we go. It's like sometimes we laugh at people, but it's not to hurt them or anything like that. It's just our way of bonding.
Go for it, Black. You wanted to address something?
Yeah, I didn't really have much to address. The 50 mil conversation was mostly for the chat, but yeah, what Jay was saying, being the one guy who does disagree, I will say this: I watched the interview when it came on live, so I watched it as it was going. I laughed hilariously at what he was saying. It was hilarious what he was saying. Some of the points he mentioned, like I said, the 50 mil, some things missed me when he said he was offered 50 mil and turned down 50 million 4 times. I want him to go a little bit deeper into that to find out what those projects were that he was offered that for. The 3,000 books, people say that's not so far-fetched. But, you know, certain things he said that were kind of like, what did you just say? Did you really do that? So it's kind of some of those things that happen. But the truth in what he said, I say he did. I never say he lied. I think he did tell the truth. But for me, I'm just not on this overwhelming, oh, Katt's a man. He's the realest guy on the streets. He's such a cool guy. I know he has a generous ability. He has a generous mindset as a person. I think he's successful in his own right. I do have some liking for Katt Williams. I'm not a Katt Williams hater or anything like that. But I think that I'm more of a inclusive type of guy. I don't like division. So when you go after someone, bop, guns blazing, it needs to be a reason for that. And everything he said that was true, I already knew. So the question to me is like, why are you doing this? This is your opportunity to talk about something that you're doing, whether it's a stand-up comedian, stand-up tour, or other business ventures, you know, whatever. But he chose the opportunity to go after somebody else. And like I said, that's more of a Katt Williams that I've been seeing in other interviews. So it'd be something different if this was the first time it ever happened. But he does this in majority of his interviews he ever done. He goes after someone. So it's more the same thing for me. But I did laugh. It was funny. And he did give some truth.
He on tour, Black. That's why he did it. He got to get them seats, okay?
Yo, you know, and I'm not hating that. I'm not hating that at all. You know what I'm saying? But it's people look more so at this as like it's the Bible, like it's so serious. Like, oh my goodness, he was laying down the law, and oh my goodness, how can you be against Katt? I'm like, yo, it was just an interview. Let's have some fun with this. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and move on from there. But I think some may be taking things a little bit too seriously. But for me, it was just it was a decent interview, very good interview, made me laugh. It did what it was supposed to do.
Okay. I appreciate it. All right. Listen, we're going to bring it to because I'm sure there's probably be having more conversations in the course of the week because there's probably going to be some more people coming out saying stuff. So there'll be more great opportunity during the course of the week to discuss more on this subject as well. Listen, I want to bring it to a nice little close at this point. But since our main deacon is not here, Sean, I will pass it to our other deacon, Jay Anderson, because, you know, look at Jay running. Jay, why are you running? She didn't even want it anyway. Don't worry, Jay. I know you don't want to. I know she don't like doing the review. Just my bad. Go on, Jay Anderson. She don't like to do it. So.
Jay, go on.
No, she don't like doing it. She don't like doing it. I don't want to put her on the spot. She don't like doing it. That's not her thing. That's not her thing. I keep doing that to her. I apologize, Jay. Jay Anderson, go for it.
Do you know what? We're gonna close now. That's fine. But I just remembered we haven't really spoke about, you know, the virgin arsehole or the sexual expectations of, you know.
Oh yeah.
And you know, being propositioned. I mean, I watched the interview. I watched Gary Owens speaking on it, and he said there was a time where he caught that vibe. You know, where whoever he was talking to didn't do it directly, but he kind of felt, oh, hold on a minute, is this one of those occasions that you're trying to, you know? And that was in reference to Katt saying because he hasn't sold his soul. That's why even as a white comic, he isn't as successful. But we could be here for another half an hour speaking on that, because that is something that's come out in recent times with the inappropriate nature of some of these things, and let's just say the expectations. If you want to get up, you got to give me something sexual, right? And yeah, I just look at in fact, let's start the benediction now. I look at 2024 as the year of truth. A lot more things are going to come out. The ball has started rolling. A lot of people just don't give a heck anymore. A lot of people just don't care. They don't even care what they lose. They just want to speak their truth and release themselves. And to me, this is what this particular interview is. Now, there are, of course, some
Not God stepping in like this.
The good Lord said, Jay, it was meant for Jay.
Oh, he said his battery died.
Well, Jay, it looks like you've come into the fold. You see, you try to deny it. You try to run away, Jay, but the good Lord saw it fit that it be you.
God got it confused. He don't know which Jay he was talking about. Jay Anderson is before Jay Saint. See the letter? You see how that works?
You can say what you want, Jay.
No, I'm dying at the way that it paused.
It's now on Jay. Look, he is paused so that you can flourish. Okay, the good Lord paused him so you can flourish.
Let's see if I can pick up where Jay Anderson was going. 2024 is the year of revelation and exposure. Listen, I can tell you like this: if you don't want to be exposed and people are mentioning you, either you stand on truth and business, and don't highlight what they say and flat out call them, out for what they said. I haven't heard one person call Katt a liar yet. So there's that. I don't know how much more we can go about it or whatnot. Does everything have to be exposed? I guess in its own time, yes, it will be. So whatever you do in the dark will come to light eventually. If they're going back into 2020, whatever, 2019, 99, on your tweets to figure out who you are, best believe all the dirt that you did way back then will be coming out too. So just be mindful of how you treat people going forward. Play it forward. As always, be kind to people. Do your best to people. Don't F over people just because. And most of all, this whole thing has been about integrity. Keep your integrity about yourself. You know what I'm saying? If you stand on some principles, keep those principles with you. You'll make it where you need to be eventually. God is always there for you in the forefront, and he stands on integrity always. So keep God before you and you'll succeed.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you for a great roundup and benediction as well. We appreciate you. Audience members, listen, we gotta go, okay? But continue the conversation in the comment section. Keep on having that convo. We appreciate y'all. And it's been a good conversation about Kevin. Wow, he gonna get me. He gonna get me. Katt Williams. It's been a good conversation, and like I said, integrity is a big thing. So shout out to Katt for being that integrous person as well. We probably will do a part 2 because there is a lot more to address. Like Jay was saying, there's a couple of things that were mentioned that we didn't actually necessarily got to, but we will get there during the course of this week. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, whether on my platform, Mr. VIPs, or Jay's. If you're on their platform as well, make sure you guys are subscribed to their channel as well. We love to support others as well. Okay, all right. So appreciate you lot. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon. Much love.